Can you hear me now? Okay, good. Yeah. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. I am Anita Barela, and I use the pronouns she and her. I'm today's worship associate. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever image of the holy, wherever you are in your life's journey, you are welcome here. If this is your first time with us, we'd love to get to know you. Please sign our guest sign-in book in the foyer. You can also speak with our greeter, Mike McNaughton, of our membership committee for more information about our church. For kids in our service, we have our activity table up front. We ask that kids use whisper voices to talk at the table. Kids can also stay seated with their grown-ups. Grown-ups and kids can also sit in our library room to hear the service. We also have a nursery for the youngest, 0 to 3 years old. Sarah Hamoud is our nursery coordinator, and you can check in with the younger kiddos there. If you would like more information about our programs for youth and children, please speak with Terra, Louise, our director of Lifespan Spiritual Enrichment. After the time for all ages, kids will leave this with Elizabeth Petrillo for our World Blessings class. We have our Candles of Community area over here and in the back. You're encouraged to come up before the prayer meditation time to light a candle and write your joy or sorrow in the book to be read aloud, if you choose. Again, you're encouraged to come up before the prayer time to write your joy or sorrow in the book. If you're in need of pastoral care or support or even financial assistance with grocery cards or funds from the Minister Discernment Fund, please contact Tina DeYoe, or Reverend Tina, to set up an appointment. Now is the time to greet your neighbor. You're now invited to greet your neighbor, and you're encouraged to greet someone you may not know or recognize, or you'd rather just wave and not shake hands. That is okay. I will call back with the chime.
I know, they always throw away. Everyone's like, I know what to do.
I know what to do. You don't need to tell me.
I know.
Thank you. Join us after the service for coffee, snacks, or conversation in the fellowship hall. At 12, you're invited to join us back here in the sanctuary for a special forum in the process of minister discernment. There's childcare available for elementary age kiddos and younger in the Create Craft Room with Sarah Hamoud. If you're in need of childcare during the forum, please sign up your kids in the Create Craft Room. This afternoon, you can join community protest at 3 p.m. at Ashley Pond, protesting ICE unlawfully terrorizing and killing U.S. citizens across our nation, even here in New Mexico. Next Friday, speed friending and the Barbie movie night. Speed friending starts at 5:30 and the movie starts at 7. Please go ahead and silence your cell phones this morning as we begin our worship service together. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. My name is the Reverend Tina DeYoe. I use she, her pronouns. I am the minister here at this congregation. And this is our call to worship time now as we come together. We come together as a community every Sunday to pause and worship together. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion, calling us to be our better selves. Our worship theme for the month of January is resistance. Today, our worship theme is writing as resistance. And Kelly Dolejsi is joining me today as we both share our reflections on this theme. And a plug for Kelly, she has 2 books of poetry out now. One, The Missing Sea, that just came out. So talk to her after the service if you would like to purchase one of her books. I'm giving a plug there. So now we're going to light our chalice flame, the symbol of our shared faith. And so Leo is going to come up and light our chalice flame, and Anita has our chalice lighting words.
During this time of darkness and grief, we bring this light into our space to begin our time together.
Please stand now in body and or spirit to sing our opening hymn, Morning Has Come. Please remain standing as we join in together saying our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. You may be seated. The young and young at heart, if we would invite you to come forward for a Time for All Ages story. Yeah, with Terra. So come on up to our young worshipers carpet and have a seat as we share a Time for All Ages story.
This month, our offering plate is going to Self-Help. Self-Help is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting those in need in northern New Mexico. Since 1969, Self-Help Incorporated has provided consultation and advocacy, emergency financial assistance, and seed money grants to residents of Los Alamos, northern Santa Fe, Rio Arriba, and Taos counties. Each year, through grants and private and public contributions, our organization supports those who need help most during emergencies or in the quest to become economically and self-sufficient. You can also use the QR code on the screen for Give Liffey app to make a donation to Self-Help Incorporated or directly to our church's general fund. Let us now take the offering, and may what you give bring you joy. generosity this morning. Your gifts will help people in need here in northern New Mexico.
Thank you for your lovely music. That was awesome, both of you. So during this time, you are invited to come up to our Candles of Community space. If you haven't already, you can light a candle and write a joy or a sorrow in our book, which is here at the front table of candles. There's also candles in the back. Joys and sorrows that are written will then be read aloud shortly during the prayer and meditation time. And during this time, you can remain seated and join in our meditation hymn, number 123, Spirit of Life, and we'll sing it through twice. So let us now enter into this time of joys and sorrows and prayer and meditation. Today, we are lighting the candle of life for our longtime member, Carl Newton. So let us light that candle now, and I have some more words. Carl moved a couple of years ago to be near his son, Randy, and daughter, Janet, back east. Carl was a proud dad and grandpa. His daughter, Janet, is also an ordained UU minister. Carl had been a longtime member of this church since 1974 and became good friends with the Carlsons and the Dunns, who also joined the church that same year. Carl loved music and volunteered with the Santa Fe Opera. Carl even treated me to my first opera performance with his free dress rehearsal tickets. Carl volunteered in many community organizations, including with the Democratic Party, and he lobbied for end-of-life agency here in New Mexico. There will not be a formal celebration of life for Carl, but the family is encouraging anyone who wants to spend time in remembrance of Carl to locate one of his favorite pieces of music. He'd suggest something that featured one of his favorite sopranos, Dawn Upshaw, Frederica von Stade, and Barbara Hendricks, or something by one of his favorite composers, Ralph Vaughan Williams, Arvo Pärt, Wagner, Bizet, Ravel, Mendelssohn, Bartók, and Beethoven. Carl, you are missed. Thank you for being part of our UU home in Los Alamos. You have indeed left your mark on this community and our wider Los Alamos and New Mexico community. And may your name be forever inscribed in the book of life. May it be so. May all of these joys and sorrows, those spoken, those unspoken, all of those written on our hearts today, be lifted up in this space and in this community. Today in this prayer and meditation time, we also pause and remember those people whose lives were lost due to being murdered by ICE agents in 2025 and on January 7th. Silverio Villegas Gonzalez in Chicago. Renae Nicole Good in Minneapolis. An unnamed, unarmed man in Texas. Keith Porter in Los Angeles. We know that 32 others in 2025 have died in ICE custody. 2025 was the deadliest year for people in ICE custody since 2004. We also know that many others across our nation and in our state have been wounded and injured by the violence of ICE agents. We know that countless families have been torn apart as this federal domestic terrorist organization continues to terrorize communities of immigrants. We cry out today with tears in our eyes and rage in our souls, yelling, "No more!" Let us read this poem, this prayer of remembrance and grief, written for Renae Nicole Good by Amanda Gorman. They say she is no more, that there her absence roars, blood blown like a rose, iced wheels flinched and froze, now bare riot of candles, dark fury of flowers. Pure howling of hymns, if for us she arose, somewhere in the pitch deep of our grief crouches our power. The howl where we begin, straining upon the edge of crooked crater of the worst of what we've been. Change is only possible and all the greater when the labor and bitter anger of our neighbors is moved by love and better angels of our nature. What they call death and void, we know is breath and voice. In the end, gorgeously endures our enormity. You could believe departed to be the dawn, but the blank night has so long stood, but our bright fled angels will never be fully when they forever are so fiercely good. Thank you for sharing your gifts with us this morning. It's been a blessing to hear your beautiful music. Thank you so much, you and your brother both. We are living in a time of constant national grief. Grief that is too overwhelming to handle alone. Have you felt it? Yep. Yeah. I was excited for this new year, for moving along the path of love and life, but then bombs were dropped and guns were shot and my tears became heavy. This grief many of us are experiencing right now reminds me of the scene in Stranger Things, where all of the matter around two of the characters is literally collapsing and melting in around them. It's literally a liquid mess. Sometimes our grief can feel like this drippy mess. Our world, our systems, our morals, our emotions, all collapsing in around us. So much grief. We literally are living in the upside down. No joke. That's what they call it in Stranger Things, if you haven't seen it, upside down, where they go into the evil world. So in this month of January, as we engage with the theme of resistance, how do we define it? Maybe resistance looks like remaining soft and joyful despite our grief and rage. Maybe resistance looks like being present in all of our complex emotions. Maybe resistance is knowing full well that our world is on fire, yet still playing pretend penguins and going sledding with my 6-year-old niece. Maybe resistance is resistance from anxiety and depression by allowing ourselves to stay fully present with everyone or everything around me, around us. Maybe resistance is taking a nap. Resistance is being in the here and now. Resistance is joy. Resistance is pausing in our grief when we feel it. Resistance is also standing up and speaking out to that which contradicts my values of love, equity, inclusivity, and interdependence. Resistance is standing up and speaking out against oppression. Resistance is tapping into our creativity. And it might be drawing or writing a creative protest sign for an anti-ice protest like this one. How to handle dangerous ice, salt, solidarity, action, love, and truth, ice be gone. I like it. Maybe resistance is engaging in an art form where I can express all of my emotions or help my community, like the artivist in the Time for All Ages story. So what does writing as resistance look like? It looks like the present moment we are in. It can look like speaking out, crying out with our written words. Kelly and I will be exploring this writing as resistance theme with you all today. So right now, in this moment, writing as resistance might look like lament. Lamenting, meaning the wailing, weeping, and mourning. Lamenting is a sacred practice. Grief and lament is necessary in our human journey. Lament is refusal of indifference. Conscious stays awake. It is not apathy. It is not numbness. Lament can slow down our rage so we do not become that which we are raging against. What we read as our prayer from Amanda Gorman is a lament. So if you didn't know, there's a whole book in the Jewish Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, also known as the Christian Old Testament, called Lamentations, about the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. The tone is bleak. God does not speak. The degree of suffering is presented as overwhelming, and expectations of future redemption are minimal. Lamentations was written before the return or rebuilding, and thus contains only lamentations and pleas to God with no response or resolution. Here is an excerpt from Lamentations about the deserted city of Jerusalem after the destruction. How lonely sits the city that once was full of people. How like a widow she has become, she that was great among the nations. She that was a princess among the provinces has become a vassal. She weeps bitterly in the night, with tears on her cheeks. Among all her lovers, she has no one to comfort her. All her friends have dealt treacherously with her. They have become her enemies. We are in a time of national lament, a time of national grief. In the here and now, writing as resistance can be the writing of our laments. Pausing to lament is indeed resistance. So when I was first introduced to writing as resistance, it was in my college years while majoring in religion and Christian education and minoring in Latin American studies and psychology. I began studying resistance writing in the texts of liberation theologies. In my junior year of college, I studied on the border of Mexico and the US for a semester in Tucson, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora, Mexico. I studied with an organization called Borderlinks that still exists today that runs immersion learning groups and semesters to learn more about the injustices happening to people on our country's southern border. This was in 2006. I was studying immigration and migration issues, the economics behind migration, border culture and Mexican history, Spanish and liberation theology. I was introduced to liberation theology as a form of resistance writing within the Christian context. Liberation theology as a genre of writing promotes looking at the texts of the Bible from different hermeneutics, those different lenses and interpretations of the texts that are not Eurocentric, and those lenses that are of marginalized and oppressed identities. Liberation theology calls for a praxis-based theology, where reflection arises from action for justice, critiquing capitalist exploitation, and sometimes viewing socialism as a means to achieve equity. Writers like Gustavo Gutierrez, a Catholic man from Peru who is said to be the founder of Latin American liberation theology. James Cone from the US, who introduced Black liberation theology. Rosemary Radford Ruther, a Catholic woman from the US, who introduced feminist and eco-feminist liberation theologies, and who was pro-birth control, pro-choice, and pro-women's ordination in the Catholic Church. Dr. Jacqueline Grant, a Methodist woman from the US, who is one of the women considered to be a founder of womanist theology, Black women liberation theology. And if you can't read it, it says white women's Christ and Black women's Jesus, feminist Christology and womanist response. Ada Maria Isasi Diaz, a Cuban-American woman who is considered to be the founder of Mujerista theology, Latina liberation theologies. And there were many, many more liberation theologies that I was introduced to in undergrad and in seminary, including queer liberation theologies, disabled liberation theologies, Asian American liberation theologies, Native American liberation theologies, and more that are still present with us today throughout our global society. Gustavo Gutierrez's liberation theology writings emphasize a preferential treatment for the poor, meaning God's presence is best understood through the struggles of the marginalized, challenging the status quo and traditional theology by focusing on earthly injustice as a central message of the Gospels. His writings also argue that a Christian faith demands active engagement with the poor and oppressed to achieve social, political, and economic liberation, seeing it as inseparable from spiritual salvation. So writing as resistance for liberation theologians is a writing that puts a spotlight on the interpretations of sacred biblical texts that come to us from those marginalized and oppressed identities throughout our global context. Writing as resistance for liberation theologians is not only about different interpretations of texts, but interpreting these texts as a call to action and justice. So as I was a religion and Christian education major in undergrad, I also studied alternative models of education and pedagogies that are inclusive of all people. In Paulo Freire's book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Freire, a Brazilian educator and philosopher, reimagines teaching as a collaborative act of liberation rather than transmission. Freire's resistance writing came in the form of critiquing and transforming a system of education in which people of oppressed identities are empowered to reflect, question, and take action towards their own liberation. People are empowered to take action within the systems that perpetuate oppressive pedagogies. In this type of writing as resistance, Freire advocates for a transformative education that empowers the marginalized to question and challenge these oppressive structures, paving the way for a more just and equitable society. So my introduction to resistance, writing as resistance, was through these important writers, educators, philosophers, and theologians. Past figures and present-day figures who sought to and continue to seek to make our world a more equitable place for all. These writers used and are still using their writings to influence, transform, and resist the oppression that was and is still present within the institutions and systems that impact their daily lives and communities. These writers for resistance are rooted within their present moments and contexts. So when we think of writing as resistance today, we can think about the texts and the contexts in which we are living and existing. This is why writing as resistance is rooted in the present moment, our individual present moment and our communal present moment. Writing as resistance is also rooted in the writing of our stories, the stories of our lives, the stories of our differing perspectives and experiences, the stories of where we are in the here and now, the stories of our past. We want our stories and perspectives and truths to be seen and heard. What story do you want to share about yourself and your truth? You can think on that a little bit. So 2 women, to end, who I look up to immensely in our global community, who have written out their stories for all of us to hear and learn from, are Malala Yousafzai and Valerie Kaur. These 2 women have transformed their stories of violence into stories of love and empowerment. Malala, a woman born in Pakistan, was shot by the Taliban when she was a girl because she was an outspoken advocate for girls' rights to have an education. Valerie Kaur, the second woman I want to share about, is a Sikh American woman of Punjabi descent who has experienced racism and discrimination in her own life. She also has experienced the loss of family members and Sikh community members due to hate crimes and murders that were carried out by ignorant U.S. citizens after the 9/11 bombings of the Twin Towers. The first murder and hate crime that happened after 9/11 was the murder of her uncle Babir in Mesa, Arizona, while he was going out to plant crates of flowers in front of his gas station. An armed, ignorant man shot him 5 times in the back just for having a turban on his head. Valerie's story is rooted in the story of Sikh Americans, and her story is rooted in the story of revolutionary love, which she promotes through her writings, speeches, and national tours and activism. Her story is rooted in her Sikh faith, which promotes the oneness of all humanity and the phrases that Guru Nanak taught I see no stranger. I see no enemy. Both of these women have written their stories down in order to resist and transform the culture of violence which has impacted them and their communities in horrific ways. They are women who are rooted in their values of love, empowerment, and equity. I would consider these women to be resistance writers in our modern-day global community. So what story do you want to share about yourself and your truth? What are you experiencing in your present moment? Is it lament, joy, rage, or a little of all the above? Write about it. Write down your story and your perspective, and in doing so, think about how your writing or other form of expression speaks to the value of love that roots and centers all of us in this world and connects us to the oneness of humanity. Writing as resistance leaves room for differing perspectives and interpretations based on our contexts. Writing as resistance is a practice that recognizes the humanness of all of us rooted in love and rooted in the here and now.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I originally was going to speak to you today about Virginia Woolf. Her birthday is this month. Do you have the clicker? Oh, yeah. With the events of this week, it didn't really seem as relevant anymore. So I have revised. I'm just looking through. I feel like maybe I want to make a couple cuts for time. I was going to read a poem by County Cullen. I'll just tell you briefly about him. He was writing in the I'm a little more nervous than I realized. He was writing in 1925, and he wrote a poem that I really love called Incident. It's a poem about a family trip he took to Baltimore, and he was having this great time. He was 8 years old. He was super excited, and he was smiling at another child, like his first Baltimorean child that he saw, and then that child responded by calling him the N-word. The poem it's just 12 lines, reads like a nursery rhyme. I'll be happy to share it with you after the service if you're interested. I also really love a poem by Randall Jarrell called The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner. He was writing in 1947, and he was writing about these people who defended World War II bombers, and they would curl up in a fetal position in the underside of the plane to defend the bombers. And in his poem, it's another kind of horrifying reality of life that he confronts very directly, and I find that very, very moving. Again, I'll be happy to share that with you after. I also was going to quote something from Stephen Colbert. He recently won an award. Maybe I just will quote something from him. He recently won the Ripple of Hope Award from the Robert and Ethel Kennedy Human Rights Center. And he said, everyone has the opportunity and the obligation to push back against the temptation to despair, because despair is very seductive, like all mortal sins. And I'm not a Catholic any longer. I don't know exactly what I think about mortal sins, but I really like this, because despair becomes a choice, like going to the gym. Like you can decide to do it or not. I'm going to skip Dorothy Parker. Only half the poem is showing. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm just going to read a poem that was written this week by a relatively unknown poet named Hannah Eve Levy. There's only half of it up there. I'm not sure why that is. So maybe we'll just look at Dorothy Parker while we read it. I talked to Hannah a little bit over email. She's a real person. She publishes like a little journal called the Rebus, I believe. I might be mispronouncing that. It's about writings based on tarot cards, and she has a Substack that I subscribe to. She seems really lovely. There's some interviews with her online as well. So here's her poem. The day a poet is murdered by ice is a school day like every other in the first week of the year. Time isn't real, but still, it's January, and scientists say we're gaining about 60 seconds of sunlight even as the sun sets. I wake up and feel closer to death than the day before. I am a mother, so I wait for my daughter at the bottom of the stairs. And I hold her hand when crossing the street. And when we stop at the corner, I run my fingers over her ponytail like it's my own hair. She says there's a cloud in the sky that looks like a heart, but I can't see what she sees. I'm a mother, so I feed her when she is hungry. And when she asks me how to spell wolves, I explain how some nouns transform in the plural. Man is men, and tooth is teeth, and person who is murdered becomes people. I didn't know until I read this poem how much I was grieving. I encountered the poem while I was numbing out on Facebook. Then here it was, how I was feeling in someone else's words, coming from someone else's mind, from her taking the time to slow down, think, feel, and write. To allude to Virginia Woolf, Hannah found a room of her own, and she let me in. One of the astounding things about poetry and beautiful music and beautiful art is that it resists the speed of life. It resists normalizing, it resists laziness, it resists isolation. And it doesn't resist those private feelings that are hard to talk about. When I read deeply sad poems like County Cullen's about Baltimore, or Randall Jarrell's about the ball turret gunner, or Hannah's about trying to parent the day federal agents kill a citizen and lie about what we all saw on video. I find that if I take the time to think about these poems, I'm less alone in my own complicated private feelings. And the best remedy for despair, the best resistance, is knowing that someone else feels the same. Thank you.
So let us now rise in body and or spirit and sing our closing song. We're going to sing The Way, Yelena. The Way. So feel free to join hands. Oh, and we have a special announcement that I need to, we'll do it right after The Way. So, let us join hands. We're doing it now. And then we'll go back. The way is long. Have a seat, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for sharing that, and Anita, and Tina. Beloveds, I want to thank Reverend Tina for encouraging me to apply for this job. I've learned so much, met so many people here and in the larger UU movement, and witnessed so much generosity from you, the people of this church. While it has been an honor to create and host events, bring programs and ideas, and uplift our classrooms, at this time in my life, I need to prioritize my family and those closest to me. I'm very grateful for Elizabeth, who has taught me so much about being in the moment, for Nyla's encouraging smile, Maria, who cleans our building, sharing her heroic story with me, for Lacey, who's astute, tending to our kids at camp made her the obvious choice for teen child care assistant, for Sarah Hamoud for taking care of the nursery and helping in other ways, for Peggy's clear and steady approach, and for what Reverend Tina has taught me about myself and my values. In my time here, over 50 of you have volunteered for programs, projects, and events that I have gotten to run. I am so impressed that the church is its people, and I especially want to thank my family, who have been incredibly supportive, doing everything from running errands to moving furniture to attending events to patiently waiting while I write another email. Everyone on the Lifespan Spiritual Enrichment Committee, our OWL facilitators and World Blessing volunteers, and all of you who have contributed to Camp Blue Boat, our bazaars, and many other events. In the year and a half, we have done so much, a tremendous amount, and I'm grateful for each of you who has been a part of this journey. I've given a month's notice and will be here till the beginning of February. I'll be here after that too, but please join me today around 1 p.m. for lunch at the Co-op, and this Friday for our Speed Funding and Barbie movie, and next week for karaoke. And please stay posted. We'll be doing a celebration of my time in this role. My family and I will still be here and look forward to continuing to be active and engaged members of this church and community. I wish us all the best in our transitions ahead. I love you.
So in the spirit of gratitude, Terra, I would like to thank you. We would like to thank you for all you have given to our church community over this past year and a half and before, and that you'll continue to give. You have brought a spirit of joy, nurturing, new ideas, and lots of positive energy to our community. So thank you for helping us embrace multi-generational community building here. And thank you for your work towards building up the community of the beloved. So on Sunday, February 1st, after the service, we will have a more formal celebration farewell for Terra. And her official last Sunday on staff with us will be Sunday, February 8th. So thank you, Terra, for all you have given and that you'll continue to give. Thank you. And we extinguish this chalice flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May it be so. And you are free now for coffee and conversation. I know we did little things backwards. I apologize.